So thanks everyone for coming. As you see, we just made a small change here to the location of this talk, and now I don't know where I am. It says something like Keb Bak Top Pop Bolob in 2020. Now I'm a little bit British, of course, and I know we have some history with this part of the world, but I've never been here before on your little, what do you call it, a half island or something? This insul, yeah. So I've never been here before. I had a little run this morning and I saw around the place. But when I was younger, we described this as Sebastopol. Yeah, I think though I can do better now. If I have a room full of teachers, can you help me say Sebastopol correctly? I get a look at this, excellent. Work with me. Sebastopol. Sevastopol? Yeah? Okay, give me 3 variants. Come on, hit me. Sevastopol. Is Sevastopol good? Yeah? I like the stress a little bit later on, right? It's like my talk. The stress is later on. We start easy. Okay, so thank you very much for coming to Sevastopol. It's good to be here. I'm going to talk about the digital native, reaching the digital native. It's a talk I've done a little bit before, but I've made some small variations for you. I think you're all language teachers, is that right? All English language teachers? Yeah, any German language teachers here? French language teacher? Okay, French in the house? German? Italian? Russian? Aha, got you. Okay, so language teachers mostly English. That's great. But of course, what I talk about could be used in any kind of language classroom. And although I'm talking about digital native, as you'll see, I try and avoid talking just about computers because digital native and computers are not the same thing. Although I'm a very big fan of computers, so I'm going to use one as I talk today. So. Can we go to the next slide, please? So that's me. I am the Director of Academic Management of EF English First, EF Education First, forgive me, Language Travel. So I take care of the programs worldwide that we have for all of our younger learners. So we teach students of all ages, but I work with students from about 7 years of age up to about 16 years of age in international language camps around the world. So in the UK, of course, in England, but also in Australia, in Malta, in North America, in Canada, Australia, and so other English-speaking places around the world. And we also do camps for non-English, so we do a little bit of German as well, and a bit of Spanish as well, and other languages. Korean is very popular. Maybe I'll talk about Korean later, but not right now. So I deal with the younger learner programs, and I actually write the course books, design the programs, and train the teachers. Because we do a lot of training of teachers to work with our materials and our methods, I'm quite used to talking to teachers. And this is, if you like, part of our teacher development program to offer you some insight into our methodology and ideas from EF. But as I will say later, we offer the chance to join seminars and webinars like this regularly through our what we call Teacher Zone, and the website address is up there at the top. That's ef.com teacher, and we have a series of these we will talk about, and my colleague will tell you a little bit more about that later. Is that right? Yes. Okay, so here is a, next slide, sorry, forget it's not here, reaching the digital native. Here is a little outline of what I want to talk about in the next 55 minutes. Please click, all of them. There we go. I forgot what I was going to say. So we're going to talk about who is the digital native first, then a little fun, how not to teach them, and then we'll go into some possibilities, some disruptive pedagogies. You can spot my first spelling mistake there, I think, or maybe my second with Sevastopol. Top-level strategies, some sort of meta ideas, or if I was American, mega ideas. Okay, so meta ideas on teaching, and then we'll go a little bit smaller and we'll look at detail, particularly around the ideas of aims and objectives, which is something I want to focus on. And I think even though we are talking about things which are quite different to your classrooms, be patient with me, because when we come to aims and objectives, you will see this is our chance to make sure we satisfy the needs of our syllabus, which I know is very important for you. You have the curriculum and syllabus, and you have exams that the students must pass, right? So we get that in there for you. And then finally, some warnings. So people like me, we try and be too clever sometimes. So I just want to warn you, don't do everything I say, because sometimes it won't work. Okay, so next slide, please. So who is it? The digital native was invented by a guy called Mark Prensky. I actually met Mark 2 years ago in Colombia. We were speaking together at a conference. And actually, he's not a big fan of the term digital native anymore. Because he said a couple of things here that are maybe now we believe to be not true. But it's a very useful term. So he said, basically, if I read it in my nice accent, forgive me, digital natives are used to receiving information really fast. They like to parallel process and to multitask. They prefer their graphics before their text, rather than the opposite. And they prefer random access, like hypertext. They function best when networked, or connected together. And they thrive on instant gratification and frequent rewards. They prefer games to serious work. Yeah, I get some nods. Does that sound like you guys in the audience now? A couple of nods. Does it sound like your teachers or your students? A few more nods. Okay, so the idea is here, he is describing students. He's saying really that students in this day and age are thinking in this way. Actually, he said that because of technology, their brains have been rewired. He said that in 2001. He said that students' brains had been rewired. He has now decided that's a little bit kind of crazy, that after 2,000 years of evolution, people's brains suddenly got rewired in 20 years. Now, he's changed his mind on that. But the definition is still quite a useful one. Whether it's from society, from the ages of the different, what we often call as generations, you know, Generation X, for example, or the millennials, which I know some of you are here, whether it's from that, or whether it's from the different technology we use all around us, or the, the media, the external things we're exposed to. This is quite a true, useful definition of some of the opportunities and challenges that we face as teachers. So I want to address some of these. But first of all, I am a teacher, like many of you guys, and I don't like a passive classroom, right? And you've all gone very, very quiet because you're listening very attentively. So a little bit of a concept check, if you like. So do you agree with this simple definition so far? Does that sound like some of your students? A few nods? Okay, a few nods, good. Let's get more interactive. Can we click, please? So I've got 4 categories for you. Click, 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 click. Thank you very much. We're awesome. So digital refugees, right? Digital refugees are somebody who knows about all this technology and different ways of thinking and so on, but they're terrified of it. They're hiding away. Right? So then we've got digital voyeurs who know about things. You know, they know the Crimea exists, but maybe they haven't been there yet. Right? Then you've got digital immigrants. I guess that's me. You know, I've come to Crimea a little bit and I'm trying to join in with your group. Right? But I'm not really a local in any way yet. I'm not really migrated here. And then we've got the digital natives. That's the people that were born here that know all about it. Of course, we're not talking about the Crimea. We're talking about this idea of living and working with technology almost since you were born, and with this instant fast gratification, this enjoyment of graphics, this need to work together rather than work alone and focus on text all the time. So this kind of way of working, is it something that you personally are avoiding in the first case? Is it something you know about? Yeah, but it's okay over there. I don't need it over here. I know all about it. Or are you having a go, do you think? Are you participants? Or are you all the way there? Are you digital natives? Is it just as natural to you to use more text and more games, less serious styles of learning, maybe connecting people together in the class rather than one talking to many as we do in our classrooms normally? So I want you to talk together. You can talk in Russian if you like, but why not practice your English a little bit at the same time? So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to see which of these categories you belong in, and just talk together before we talk on more ideas. It's still a bit fuzzy. I mean, so basically, even if you can't see the exact categories, the one on the right is, are you very comfortable learning and trying things out in class in a not fully structured linear way, all about writing and next step, you know, very deductive? And are you more interested in like inductive, a little more interested in graphics and students trying things out themselves and using a bit of technology? What do you think? Which end would you be generally, ladies?
So maybe we use everything from these parts a little.
Oh, you mix them?
Yeah, we mixed it and make it more fun and enjoyable for students and of course useful.
So you mix it, do you mix mostly for fun, like motivation, or mostly for usefulness?
Maybe for usefulness.
Maybe for usefulness,
yes.
Okay.
We know that it's not a game,
right?
But they didn't know.
And what kind of technology do you use in the classroom?
What we use? We use games, we use screen, of course, presentation, some kind of games with cards,
okay.
And flashcards and so on, a lot of things.
Would you use students' phones as well?
Student phones, just for Quizlet maybe, yes.
Okay, possibly, okay. Beautiful, but you also said flashcards and some things like that. So what's...
They are very proud to show their photos of their pets, for example.
Oh, brilliant, yes. And it's so natural, right? It's so like, oh, look. I love it. No, perfect. Yes, exactly. So what's your names?
Tatiana.
Belina? Galina and?
Tatiana.
Tatiana. Okay, I might mention your names in a minute. Is that okay? Brilliant. I spoke to some people around the room, and I can see you've been working hard. Interesting, isn't it? There was a group at the back who instantly got their phones out and took a picture of the screen and made it bigger, and then worked with that. How many people did that? Put your hand up. Okay, how many people are taking pictures of my slides as I go? Don't worry, I won't call the police, it's okay. Yeah? Right, so I can see you're already quite comfortable with your personal digital technology to help you learn. Right, you're not just listening to me, you're also taking pictures so you can check back, and you're involved. Actually, that's quite a rich way of consuming my message. Right, you've copied it and it's yours now, right? You can keep it. I wonder how many, don't worry, they are recording me, and of course we will share the slides later. So you're very welcome to these things if you're someone who likes to look later, but also if you like to get more involved digitally, that's one of the tools that digital natives use. And you'll see students in class taking pictures of your board or using Google Translate or other tools. Yeah? No, not in my class, okay. And I remember, I confess, I was a school teacher, I was an English language teacher in Russia, in Siberia, a long time ago. In Siberia, in Surgut, okay? Yes. When you see the word Russia, Surgut is between the two S's, right up the top, in the middle of nowhere. So I was a teacher up in Surgut, and my naughty students used to, you know, you could see them under the desk with something under the desk, looking down there. And it wasn't a mobile phone. What was it? No, we didn't even. It was a long time. It was a dictionary. You know, way back. Yeah, do you remember dictionaries? Yeah. Okay. So way back, students used to use their, you know, monolingual dictionary, their English-Russian bilingual dictionary, and they cheat with that. And it was like, no dictionaries. Today we have the same challenge, except it's no phones, no phones, no phones. I think no difference. The teacher needs to control when it is appropriate and when it's not appropriate. Okay, and I'm going to say this word, okay, I'm going to say this word now to get it out of the way of my talk, but somebody has already mentioned Kahoot, okay? A lot of people I know out there will use Kahoot in their lessons when they do want the students to use phones, okay? And there are other apps like that we all make use of from time to time. So we might be using phones or we might not. I think that's the teacher's choice, okay? So just a quick show. How many of you said that you were digital natives, you think? Put your hand up if you think you're digital natives. Oh gosh. Okay, nobody? How about the next category? Digital voyeurs. Sorry, digital immigrants, forgive me. Digital immigrants? Okay, most of us. I think technically a digital native is born after about 1980. Right, so there must be more officially digital natives by, I see all these lovely young people out here in front of me, right? I'm the old one. You're welcome. And voyeurs, a few more voyeurs. Okay, so you're mostly immigrants. You're getting involved. You're using it. That's good. And I heard, forgive me, was it Gabriella? Galina, forgive me. Galina was giving some great ideas of how students in her classes can make use of technology in a natural way when she wants to. So I think that was a really good one. I'll come back to that example, Galina, and I'll try and get your name right when I do that, forgive me. But let's move on. We're going to use some of this because I'm very pleased that you all identify as digital immigrants, and maybe this is something that won't happen in your classrooms. Can we go one and show the video?
Okay, Edna, remember, if you can teach one kid one thing, then today will be a success. Now class. Class, please pay attention. Text uncle, text uncle. Why do you all need cell phones? Safety. Emergency. Safety. Educational. Could you at least set them to vibrate? That's it. Everything in the box. No more gizmos in this class. They're all going in the drawer with the biology frogs. Okay, we'll call your bluff. Teach us, using only the knowledge in your own head. Hey, don't worry. We still have the good old classroom computer. Who wants to play word jammers? Let's go that grandfather has more better than that day. How's he doing? Better, thanks.
Okay. So, before I show a little list and go on to some good takeaways from this, did you see anything the teacher did wrong there? Anyone want to be brave and shout out? I think it's Edna, isn't it, the teacher in The Simpsons? Yes? So she took the phones away. Fair enough. I mean, she got control back of the class, did she? A little bit. They were giving her some respect. So she took away the phones. Did she do anything else that didn't really work? Yeah. She really went back to super basics with something that didn't really appeal to the way the kids want to take in information. Now, if they want to take in information in this way, and they actually wanted to communicate. I know it's a bit silly, yeah, it's The Simpsons, right? But did you see when the two boys were wrestling? When the bully's obviously trying to hit the other boy, and rather than say uncle, uncle means I give up, by the way, American English. So when you're arm wrestling or something like that, someone says uncle, they give up. rather than say uncle, he had to text it. And when the two girls were talking, they had to text. Well, many of you already said you're closer to preferring text, possibly, than images and sound and pictures. So actually getting kids to put something in text is a bit of a small victory. Right? And getting them to look and concentrate on media sometimes is a bit of a small victory. So if we can work together with some of the opportunities that the way digital learners like to take information in, that can help power our classes. Now, I said I don't want to just talk about phones. Okay, that was fairly phone heavy, but there are other things we can take from this message. So please click through. So this, if we go down to the level of detail, these are the things that motivate the so-called digital natives, and things that you're already getting quite aware of if you're comfortable users of the technology, you're the immigrants, but this is what society has been made going on in their brains. They want quick responses, right? They want the phone to come back with them something fast. This is why they like control. Now, we've all got a lot of gadgets these days, you know, whether it's your running watch or your GoPro camera or whatever, and everything kind of responds to you fairly quickly. You're in control. Control, I think, is very important in the classroom. As teachers, it's super important to you, isn't it? Yeah? If we talk about trying something new, oh no, I don't want to lose control. But if you're really in control of your classroom environment, you can share it to students occasionally. That's the real balance. Sometimes you give it, sometimes you take it back, and you manage that. Students like to follow their interests. Maybe students always have, but in the past that control and the choice of topic has always been teacher. But because students get very motivated by little things that interest them, and now they have access to that media, we can possibly use that to make lessons more personalized, more meaningful to students. Students now also apparently, right, they're digital native, they like to work things out themselves. Right? They like a bit of puzzle solving. They don't just want to be told everything and consume it. They want to work things out. Doesn't sound a bad thing to me. They like to get information, kind of said this already, about the world. They want to find things out. They don't want to just be told by a teacher or a parent or someone what happens in a certain place. They want to see it firsthand. Or very often through social media, through so-called influencers. They want to see the real experiences that other people have had. This is very true even, you know, in our English language courses. We put lots of advertisements and we make lots of nice brochures and all this and that and the other. But the kids who are going, they'll check out on the internet and they'll look at an influencer from Russia or whoever they like who has been there. You know, and they'll see what really goes on in the classrooms. And I have to say, they'll find good stuff, I promise you. They like this being socially connected together, but also on a wider way. And this idea of social capital is very, very important to students now, to young people now. They want to be quite cool. They want to feel they have a lot of friends, or a lot of, you know, likes, quite literally, right? And that's measurable now. You can see how many friends you have. Supposedly, okay, maybe they're not real friends, but you know, you can count that up and you go, oh, a lot of people like me, that's okay, I'm a good person. Students like these things. So if these motivate the digital native, they are also their skill set. They're things that they can do, that we can channel as teachers. They like quick responses, controls, following interests, they like personalized learning, thinking differently, puzzle solving. They want to get information about the world and be socially connected and gain social capital. We can harness all those things. One more click. And we can use it in the classroom. If you've got students who want quick responses, that's great. That leads us on to stuff like quizzes and replies and quick checks in the learning. Right, so it's not like wait later. We just make sure we give lots of results fast and they can see how well they're doing. If they're ready to take control of their learning, that's actually brilliant. That means you can involve them in goal setting and stuff. When we come down to syllabus later, we can think about how they can have some ownership of the syllabus and control of what they're learning and kind of go, oh, I'm following what I need to do to learn, which is brilliant, right? Because they're doing what we want them to do. And they're interested in learning. As I said a couple of times here, they're interested in problem solving, they're interested in finding out about the world. It's learning. Right, taking in information. This is wonderful. They like to work individually. Okay, so they want to work on their own problems rather than, and here I mean rather than as a class, everyone doing the same thing. Learners want to follow an individual learning pathway. They want to follow their own interests. That can be good because it can help them focus, but we need to give these kids these days a lot of help focusing, as we'll say, because they like to take so much information in. They like solving small problems. All of you nodded when I said problems the first time, so this is a good thing. And they're curious about the world. Eager to communicate, although maybe eager to communicate through digital means. They're not always so brave to get up on stage and speak to a lot of people like me because they're socially just a little bit worried. But because our students, this works for me brilliantly, because our students are a bit worried about their social standing, we can build that through the medium of their language learning. We can help them collaborate, communicate, cooperate, right? All these so-called 21st century skills, they fit beautifully into language lessons. So the children grow in confidence, their ability to critical think, their ability to maybe question each other when they're talking together and interact and network. These are really strong things which the learners want us to help them do. And if we do it in a safe classroom environment, they can recognize, actually, I'm better at speaking to people. You know, I've got better at speaking to people in my English language lessons, so I want to go and explore the world and speak to other people and be like that influencer I saw, right? And that's a great thing. That kind of, if you like, instrumental motivation to go and be able to do something is a good powering beyond just the fun of using technology in your lesson. So there's things, lots of hooks that we can use, that you can use. Okay, and I said they like little goals, so they're interested in a way in progress. I said instrumental or extrinsic motivation. These long-term motivations are very hard for us to get as teachers into students, full stop, I think. You know, you can't get a 12, 13, 14-year-old to think about their future so easily. But they do think about how well I did in the next test or how well I did in the last test and so on. So if we can make it into small pieces, we can help them understand progress because time for them is short. You know, they're not as old as us, I'm afraid. Okay, great. The next one, please. So I think, and I'll skip this slide because most of you said you're teachers. Often I have a room full of government ministers, and I really mean this. So we talk about policies. Because learner motivation, I think are things that you've talked a lot about. We have potential for new ways to learn, new things in the classroom. Some autonomy, this is where we give the students control a little bit of the classroom. And some of you have mentioned, so in your classrooms you do have some technology, I guess, and familiarity with technology is important to teachers. So put your hands up if you have ever used a Kahoot. Let's just try this. This is a non-Kahoot Kahoot. I make funny music. Put your hand up now if you've ever used Kahoot. Put your hand up now if you've ever used mobiles in the classroom at all. Oh, a few more. Okay. Put your hand up if you've ever got the kids to make in the classroom a video using their mobiles. Oh, good. Yeah, during the class. Okay, okay. Now, I'm sensing flipped classroom over here, I think. Have you ever got them to do something like that outside the class as homework and then bring it into class? Okay, all right, so same thing, but this is wonderful because what you're doing here is you're owning the disruptive pedagogy. Right, saying, right, I want to use mobiles, but my way, right? Because I'm the teacher here. So you're going to go out the classroom and use it and bring it back. And that's wonderful. Okay, so you're familiar with the IT. Maybe you don't have the availability of it in class. I talk a lot about something I call microblending. Right? This is my big idea. Microblending is where the teacher can use whatever technology they want whenever they want. So if you have, rather than Edna with her one computer in the corner from the 1960s or whenever it was, if you want to use tablets, you have tablets. If you want laptops, you have laptops. If you want a screen, and that's what this group here we're talking about, you've got your screen that you can turn on when you want. If you want to use the students' mobile phones, that's all ready. Most of us aren't lucky enough to teach in schools where we can microblend anytime we want, so we have to choose. Right? But when microblending, you don't use all the technology all the time. That would be crazy. There's just times when it works, when it fits. Right? So that's one day will be there. Right now, you have to decide, okay, if I want to use mobile phones, the sensible place is to do it outside the class and then maybe bring it in class to show. So you have to make those choices. But that also requires a lot of flexibility from you to fit around the syllabus. So that's my last point. Please, the next one. So here are some top-level things we can do. Again, not very concrete classroomy ideas yet, but a few top-level things. Please click through, click, click, click. Oh, I know we do that. Click, click. Okay, stop. Oh, back one. Yes. So rich input. I gave you an example of rich input already today. Did anyone catch my richest piece of input? What did I do that was richer input than just text? Oh my goodness, tough question. So my input to you, right, if we talk very old pedagogy, we talk the ideas that come from me into you. Right? Now, I don't believe learning really works like that. It doesn't, but the input is the material that I'm giving you. Now, I didn't just give you text today. What else did I give you? A video. Yeah, somebody said it out there, I promise. So a video to slightly enrich it, to slightly mix it up. And just a little bit of video occasionally, or a little bit of using the phone, a few pictures. We had a lovely idea over here where we were going to use, maybe if the students are talking about the family, we get them to get their mobile phones out and show a picture of their family to someone else and talk about who's in the picture. Right? That's two things there. The student owns that. And secondly, it's using different media, and it's personalized, right? So very, very nice, very neat fit. Again, you get another point for that. That's a good example of sort of joining in a little bit of what the students like to do to keep the class flow going. Then we have some very deliberately what's called disruptive pedagogies. So when I used to be a teacher trainer, we talked about the communicative approach. I guess, do most people in here feel you're a communicative? Put your hand up if you feel you're a communicative language teacher. Okay, a few people are shy. I like the, I'm not sure I can say it, fair enough. So most of us, communicative language teaching, when it sort of started, when we started training in it, it was present, practice and produce, or PPP. Methodology. If you do a CELTA, things you do talk a lot about that, and you give people controlled practice and then more open practice and so on, and they do something communicatively. Actually, we're kind of officially, we're post-communicative these days. We talk about other ways, tasks and projects and things we can do. And disruptive pedagogies are kind of post that very linear, clear expectation of the stages of lesson that will happen. So another way to describe them is they're less formal. They're things that are a bit more mixed up. So we don't always show the students what we want them to practice before they practice it. They practice something, and then we talk about the language that so-called emerged from that. Okay, so this is, for example, you might, rather than drilling, I don't know, father, brother, mother, son, stepfather, you might just say to kids, okay, pull out your phones, talk about the people from your family in the pictures and talk to your friends. And then at the end, we'll see what vocabulary we got. Right? That would be doing it backwards. That would be a bit more of a disruptive pedagogy rather than PPP. One of the strongest ones of these, I think, is something called project-based learning, which I'll talk about in a while. Anyone do projects in their classes? A couple of people? Okay. For me, projects are things that take place over several lessons, and they're the learner's choice. Something else is blended learning, used mostly in the university kind of sector, but I expect in some of your schools where you have some in-time class lectures or lessons, and then also the students study set things online. Maybe your school has an LMS of some sort that the students use outside classroom, and they have to follow through some steps on that. Blended learning is actually typically quite fixed. Some people say blended learning can also happen when you bring computers into class and students have some set time on computers. And they do maybe set programs there, maybe the vocabulary quizzes and so on. That's blended learning, mixing traditional and non-traditional. Then we have flipped classroom, which I think was being suggested there. This is where you use all the the technology outside class, and the kids maybe prepare and research, and then they come back into class and you do lots and lots of speaking activities. But they're maybe learning the grammar outside the class. That's the flip. Okay. I'm not sure I've got it on the slide, but so the flip is where you have maybe you make a video of a grammar presentation. You put it online and you get the kids to watch it, and then yes, somebody's done that. Put your hands up if you've done that. Oh my goodness, I can see some people who want this Teacher in Excellence Award that you're going to talk about later already. Yes. So Excellence in Teaching Award, right? Yes. Shh, I won't talk about it. It's a secret. Okay. Camilla doesn't want me to talk about it. So there is the chance where you make your class longer by using the technology outside the classroom. So your kids get more exposure and more use of the language when they're in the class together. That's the flip. I'm a big fan of what I call the double flip. The double flip is where you give the students the ideas of what you want to present, and they make the videos that they and the other students watch. So rather than the teacher doing all the presenting, you get the students to present, either prepared inside or outside classroom, but that also happens outside class. And then you run the class. So it's a bit more student ownership. Then we get what I call microblended, which I've kind of already explained. And it's a little bit of all these things mixed together, because you can use technology whenever you want. I think that's a bit more of a perfect future. But a lot of teachers, like yourselves, try and work in that way. You'll go, oh, you know what, this piece of grammar, I don't want to spend 4 hours in class teaching this. I'm going to make a video, they're going to watch it as long as they need to watch it, and then we can use it in class. You know? Or, this would be good to do as a quiz with a Kahoot in class. Right, so you're making those choices. That's what I call microblending, and I think there are microblenders in the room, I'm sure. Okay, I mentioned focus. I'll come specifically onto that. And feedback, gamification, I'm going to come into details on that. So let's, next slide, please. Click, please. So project-based learning, click, 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 stop. Oh, sorry. Here's a few examples of project-based learning. Some people said they do this. This is where you give the kids an idea and you let them run with it. Maybe you work with them in the planning stages, and maybe you also come back to them from time to time. You give them a little time to plan, and then you get them to explain their plan. Then you have them to prepare a presentation and then give a presentation. Projects nearly always end with a presentation of their idea in English to other students, who then kind of listen and watch and maybe give them some sort of vote or some sort of feedback. But different students in the class come up with different things. Here's a nice one. I'm trying to write a book. And this first one is one of the best ideas I had for my book, so I give you this one free. This is where everybody's into fitness at the moment, right? And you know, you have this lovely water side that you can run along and everything this morning. So you say to the students, right, I want you to design a fitness course where people can run along. I know there's a skateboard park already down by the river sort of thing, but you can run along and you can try different bits of fitness out. So come up with some different exercises and decide where you want it. I mean, maybe it goes along the side of the water here, maybe it's in a park, maybe it's through a cool bit of city, maybe they make it look cool and arty, maybe it's long, maybe it's short. So they design it themselves to fit in their own city for whoever they want. Maybe they think it's for young kids, for old people. I don't know if you have these in Russia yet. I've been to China to talk quite a lot, and they have kind of open-air exercise places for old people in China. It's like a swing park for old people. Do you have those here as well? Sort of, yeah? Okay, so something like that. Maybe they decide they want to make something like that. Maybe they have some of those machines, you know? So you get the students to design this themselves, and first you say to them, okay, by the end of today, I want you to decide what age group it's for and where you're going to build it. And then they get into groups and they decide what they're going to do. And then you say, okay, now guys, I want you to go away and each design a machine and decide which the machines or which exercise things you want to put together. And then I want you to design an instruction board. And something. So you think of a few phases of it, but the students come up with all the ideas themselves and present at the end. The important thing is to try and think of stages, or even ask them, okay, what's the next stage? We've got 2 lessons this week. in this lesson, it's a normal lesson. In next lesson, I'm going to give you 15 minutes on your project. And by the end of those 15 minutes, what can you tell me? And you decide with the group, so you negotiate. So that's a parcourse course, as one example. Then we might have a charity project. Again, that's quite big at the moment. People like giving back. Students like having a say. It's another big motivator in English. So maybe, for example, they decide they want to clean up. Actually, I must say, Sevastopol is very clean. Okay, so I live in Switzerland. People believe Switzerland is a clean place. It's not. They just clean it up a lot. Swiss people are very messy. I was impressed for my first impression. But maybe, there are places the kids might go, you know what, we should clean that, it would look better. Or maybe they want to do something else for charity. I don't know, show a film about girls in education or something like this and collect some money for something, a school in Nepal or whatever else they're into. So they could also, speaking of schools, maybe design a school of the future. It's another fun project. Or we do actually have various EF projects online that we do publicize. I won't go into details about those. We may talk about those a little bit later in the day, but we do also provide some ideas on the Teacher's Own website. So next slide, please. Gamification. I went to a big conference on gamification in Spain 2 months ago. Lots of important people, and none of them seemed to know what gamification actually was. It was quite scary. Gamification isn't games in your classroom. Okay? Gamification also isn't trying to make every piece of learning into a computer game. And actually some very, very clever people have made computer games like real games, and like Edna's, they're the most boring game ever. Right? You can use real games for language learning, right, if you want to. For example, the most educational game of all time, apparently, is Minecraft. You heard of Minecraft? Where they're kind of online building Legos, and kids learn a lot through that, apparently. And they can network and talk to each other playing it, and very often they talk English. Before Minecraft, it was World of Warcraft, was also very big. So if you're not into guns and wars and stuff, but kids would connect online and talk while they're playing it. Not because it's a game, but because the game drew them in. It enthused them, it kept them going, it gave them the instant gratification. And they talk lots online. So Minecraft thought, oh, this is good. We'll bring out a Minecraft educational edition. Has anyone got one? No, not a good idea. Lego, I work a lot with Lego. I work with the Lego company, design some courses with the Lego company, with the Lego educational division. Lego education, you must admit, Lego is an educational toy, right? People learn a lot through Lego and they get some thinking, creative and all this, that and the other. So Lego invented educational Lego sets. Yeah? They're actually not such a good idea either. As soon as you try and make a game into something that just fits in a classroom, it kind of kills it. Right? So you have to have it there, but still let it be itself, let it be a game. But gamification isn't about just bringing games into the classroom. It's not so simple. Gamification is about using features that we find in video games to encourage and motivate students to learn. And these are, classically, points, leaderboards, progress bars, badges, and can you click one more? Okay, click back, sorry. Okay, I did just change this just before I showed it, and I don't think it went onto the memory stick, forgive me. So, points, leaderboards, progress bars, badges, and one more that I just learned about recently. There's something in a lot of games called quests. Yeah? And quests is where the students can choose a set of tasks that they want to, the learner, the gamer, can choose a set of tasks that they want to link together and follow out. And that's a bit like having your own syllabus, right? Having your own set of goals. I'm going to follow through this stuff, and I want to do this, that, and the other, and the other. And now, if you can capitalize on these ideas in classes, so if you can say, right, we're going to get points for a lot of things we do. Right? Teachers have been doing this for years. Right? I mean, I trained as a primary school teacher. We used to have a star chart on the wall. Yeah, if you got all the stars, you could choose a book in the last lesson kind of thing of the week, and everybody saw how well they were doing, just the same, just little stickers. Right? Students respond well to that. It's kind of, oh look, I'm doing well, I'm doing the right thing. Leaderboards, okay, so maybe we put names up so people can see how they're doing, the top few. Leaderboards, as a teacher, aren't always great, because as soon as you identify some leaders and some winners in the class, it kind of points to losers. So it does motivate people to see that, but I think there's also a demotivational aspect that we can do well to avoid. But progress bars, people can see how much they're doing, how well they're doing. So this works on any online learning, you start to see that. And these progress bars and points are what keep you learning. I'm trying to improve my German at the moment, and I get very excited by how many points I get in my little gold pouch at the end of my session online. I don't know what those points mean. I don't know if they mean I'm C1 or B2 or what, but I love building little piles of stuff. It just makes me feel like I'm doing something with my time. And badges, you know, sort of an achievement stuff. And I mean, teachers, we give stickers and badges and stamps and stuff a lot, but they are aspects of gamification. And maybe you've been doing them all the time, but they're a way to help people recognize progress. And that's the strength of gamification. And digital natives love it. So if we already do some of that, just keep doing it, right? Don't have to change it, just recognize that that is reaching a digital native. It doesn't have to be computers. You can give them a little rubber stamp with well done on, that's good. They can have a little learner diary where they write something they've done, they recognize achievements and tick it, that's good. It maybe doesn't sound digital, but it's great. Okay, if they want it digital, then you can get them to do it online in some way, you know, maybe fill in a form, have a Google Doc or whatever works for you for these. The next slide, please. So this idea of aims and objectives are very strong, and I'm going to cut through fairly quickly. I'll skip the definition of aims and objectives because we're all teachers, right? Yes, I'll just use the terms fairly loosely in the next slide. Please go through, just to keep us good on time here. Here's an example of some, if you like, goal setting for students, SMART targets. Have any of you ever, one more please? Excellent. Any of you ever used these? No? Okay. We get students to set SMART targets. And this is using the fact that they want to see their progress by sitting down with them and helping them set it. Now, SMART target isn't just, I get students who come study us in England and they say, I want to be fluent in English. Yeah, okay, when? How long? Or, you know, I want to sound like an Englishman. Okay, but you can't really measure that so easily or see how successful you are. Or, you know, when is important. So we get students to think of specific goals that are measurable, that are realistic, they're achievable, and that they're time limited. Okay, so we get them to say, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I want to fix this piece of my pronunciation. You know, for example, I want to get maybe stress correct in 4-syllable Russian words. Might be my goal or something like this. Or I want to be able to use the present perfect to ask questions about the past. Right? So we'd have something very specific. Now, those are quite grammatical and phonological, but they can also be quite functional. Right? So I want to be able to talk to people I meet in the street. I want to be able to greet people I meet and say hello by the end of my course. That might be something on a course abroad, okay, in the next 2 weeks. I want to be able to ask directions when I'm out in town. Now I know everyone uses Google Street View or whatever, so maybe we don't have that one. So maybe I want to be able to ask for things to eat and drink in the shops, right? I know we all use supermarkets, so we don't use that one either. But there are quite a lot of functions that we can get. Maybe order something in a restaurant, okay? Please don't say McDonald's with the till with the buttons, right? There are some things, I promise you, that require real interaction. Please click through. And one more. One more. I actually use this goal machine with younger learners because this idea of SMART targets is a bit technical. So I say to the students, right, what's the kind of thing you want to do? What is it? Where is it? And who do you want to do it with? Okay, so they might be, the action, the how might be, for example, something like writing, okay, and they want to write, what kind of things do they want to write? So maybe it could be something like filling in forms or ordering things, fill in order forms on the internet. Maybe my kids want to buy some stuff, right? Fill in order forms, what? Fill in a form, where, on the internet, who, to someone to buy clothes from. Right? So that gives them a space that they can use that tiny little bit of learning. But it could equally be something like ask people if they're having a good time in the amusement park. Right? So simple little things where we get students to set a few goals, and they can be as small as possible, and then maybe they sort of chain them up and add them up. And there are a lot of places where these kind of goals can come from. I like to get students to fix them on courses, but please click through. Recognize this? Yeah. Common European Framework of Reference, recently updated. I hope you've all read the updated version. You all read the updated version? There's one word that's come, or term, that's come out of the new updated CEFR. Do you know what it is?
Native speaker.
Native speaker. Oh, that's excellent. I think you earned a prize for that. Yeah. So we don't talk about expert language speakers as being native-like or having native speaker competence anymore, because not all native speakers are equal, and it's politically strange thing to say, right? I know I'm in a room full of language teachers, and you're not all native speakers, but you're all very valuable language teachers. So I think it creates a strange message to say you have to be like a native speaker. So the CEFR, which is a European organization formed mostly of non-native experts, in fact. Most of the people behind this stuff aren't even native English speakers, so they just did away with that term. Yeah, we kind of have C1 and C2, but they've kind of invented A0 now, and they've put some plus levels and stuff in there. So there's a bit more information in it. But what I really like is you can get these small phrases and you can use them as aims for language lessons, and students can use them as goals. And what we do with our students is we have a learner diary, and we have these aims taken out for each level that they're studying. And when they show that they can do something in any class, so at the end of the class we give them 5 minutes, they look down and they go, this is something I did a bit of today, and they show it to the teacher. If the teacher agrees, they get 1 tick. And when they get 3 ticks, we give them a stamp and say, okay, we really think, yeah, you can do this now. So when we're giving them some responsibility for their own learning, with something as simple as a CFR, which is in nice, very readable English. One more click, please. Click, please. Another one is the Pearson Global Scale of English. Has anyone used that? This is taken from Pearson's Teacher Toolkit. Actually, the website looks a bit different. They've just updated it now. But it's a very, very nice way for any teacher. If you go onto this website, there's different domains and, like I said, the what and the where. You can find different places the kids might be using English, or your students might be using English, and you can find what I call micro goals there. You can find exactly specific targets, and it's based on the CEFR, but it's in a little more small detail. So it's very good for you to either try and use from time to time in your language lessons, or for me, better for students to look for themselves. Maybe when they're doing a project, maybe within your lesson as tracking and so on. So they're things that they can start to tick off. And remember, if they're starting to tick off, if they've got a little book with these in, or maybe you even post them to an online document, like a table they can tick off if they want. Or, if you're really cool and hip, maybe you put it on a Padlet or something like this and they can post things in. The students can actually take some responsibility and see it as one of these ways they can see their progress. Thank you. So this is all about tracking and reflection. Please click through. So I'm really talking about goal checking, learner diary, personal reflection, and get the students as much as possible to talk about each week what they've achieved and notice their progress. One fun way to do this, if you use something like Padlet or any online learning platform, is you get the kids to take a video of themselves each week. They're learning. And talk about one thing they did in their learning. If they're shy of the video, get them to just record their voice. But ideally, it's got some real English in it, and they just make a short one. And they can save these up over time and look back at how well they've done and feel quite pleased about themselves. Even if it's an entirely personal thing, okay, they don't have to post it onto the internet. It can be just on their phone in a hidden folder if they want to, if they know how to do that, and it's just a way of showing progress. And that's nice thing about that is you can get them to practice something that is actually kind of useful in an exam. And then later on, maybe you get one or two of them together to make a little video in class for a sort of Cambridge exam style practice of speaking together. And they've used a few things they can do. And they go, right, I know I can do that. And you say, right, look back at the video you made last week. Look back at the video you made 2 weeks ago. What stuff have you learned? What stuff have you achieved? And that's a great sense of purpose for someone, great sense of achievement for somebody who is not used to recognizing long-term goals and long-term achievement. So again, that's rich input. That's helping them recognize things. Please click one more. So gamification, here's that silly slide. Please go through, click. Next click. Yeah, I don't want it. It's my mistake. Next, yeah, sure. Macro goals and micro goals. Click through. And, okay, I'll stay here for 1 second. Oh, next one, sorry. I'm jumping, I'm sorry, forgive me. Jumping around a bit. I changed some slides, but I pasted them in the wrong place. So, has anyone heard of a sprint? So gamification came from the computer gaming world. Sprints came from the computer game development world. This is what they have now in development of games and books and things like this is something called agile project management. Agile project management is a very flexible way of reaching a goal. Rather than saying, maybe here, for example, I know you built a big bridge a long time ago, right? The big bridge that connects you across to Russia, right? So rather than saying, okay, in 5 years we will finish this bridge, and in 2 years we will clear the ground, and in 3 years we will do this, and in 4, and see a series of goals like that. What you do in agile project management is you set yourself one thing to do, and you try and do it fast as possible. And maybe you don't even get it right, and then you have to spend more time doing it, but you just focus on one thing at one time. It's very short goals called sprints. And a sprint is typically just 2 weeks. Sprints are based around user stories, and a user story might be, right, we've got this bridge. First thing we need to do, we need to get cars onto the bridge. So we need a ramp. So the first thing they do is build a ramp. And they go, right, can we get cars on the bridge? Yes. Okay, next bit. Now we need to, so they think about it in little stories. User stories can be used as your students in just the same way, right? Rather than, I want to be able to pass my Cambridge exam, we don't call that a user story, that's called an epic. Right? That's big. I got a little bit of a laugh, but it's actually true. They do call this in project management an epic. Right? So we need to bite it down into smaller chunks. So maybe they say, I need to describe different pieces of accommodation. I need to describe different buildings. Break it down. I need to describe different places to live. So then we can focus on different places to live and talk about them for a short while, maybe a week. Right? So the students have a focus on that. They need some to measure it. Okay, I can talk about places to live in 5 different ways, or 10 different ways. And they show some achievement by tracking it that they've done it at the end. So when they've got that, then they can go, right, that's places to live. Now we get other places in the town, and so on. And we make the sprints as short as possible, and we help the learners see what little things they can do, and again, track it. I say we can track it in little books and diaries and so on, and online diaries, Google documents, whatever the tools you like to use here are, but again, students can also track that personally on their phones, we produce an online dictionary in EF for all our students when they travel, where all the students can add anything to the dictionary and it helps them practice all the words. There are other products out there, but EF make one of these. It's called EF Mentor. You can download it free. I'll say that again. It's called EF Mentor Words. right? Easy name for a dictionary, right? EF Mentor Words. They can download it free, and you can add words into it, and then it makes quizzes on those words in the Oxford English Dictionary. And we get students to add 2 or 3 words every week. Actually, 16 words a week. We add automatically to fit what they study. They add in automatically, and we get them to add words that they find. So they do it very slowly, and it checks their learning. But when we were testing this, we tested it in our school in Cambridge, and one of our students came over. I have to say she was a Russian student, and she came over, and it was the first week, and we were testing this in the school. We had real students using it for the first time, and all the students, they came to speak to me about how they've been using it, how they liked it. And one student came in, "This is great! I've put all 2,000 words in my FCE exam in it, and I'm already practicing them." Which is probably too much. But the students like to see that sort of measuring of progress, and they like to make the flashcards. I mean, maybe, for example, some of you are fans of Quizlet. Yeah, okay. So maybe they make their own flashcards in Quizlet as they go along. It doesn't have to be an EF thing. But again, if they focus on one thing a week and build it up, that's a very powerful tool for them to get feedback and them to feel, oh yeah, we can do this. Right? That's kind of gamification. Next one, please. Micro goals, I've just talked about in what I talked about. So next one, please. And please click. So I mentioned a few of these, but just to be clear. Okay, stop. Learner diaries, again, they can be paper, they can be electronic. Students need to set their own goals and track as they go through. Also, personal connection maps are, I talked about a lot of things that are very linear. A lot of lines, lists and stuff like that. But we already said students don't like to think in those terms. So it's a great one to do. A guy called Terry Busnan invented the idea of the mind map. You must use mind maps in your class, like brainstorm things occasionally. We'll get the students to do those. And it's a great one to get them to start with any word and try and connect it to any other word. Right, here's where teachers get it wrong and students get it wrong. They will draw a map of nouns. It's always nouns. You know, it's like street, car, wheel, window, street lamp, bulb. You know, everything connects. Like it's all nouns. But then get them to do in another color the verbs. So they get drive, brake, stop, turn, steer, accelerate around their car. Then get them to go for adverbs or adjectives in other colors, you know, so you get beautiful, shiny, sleek, fast, captivating, whatever they think about. So you get them to work, and get them to work for one word and see how much they can build out each time as a vocabulary. Nice way for them to reflect what they're doing. And again, that to me is a paper exercise, but I'm sure some of you have also tried it electronically. Works very nicely electronically with something like Padlet, where instead of just putting words, they can stick pictures or little bits of text, and they make mini projects out of things, and it becomes very rich and engrossing and student-centered. Also, hashtags are quite powerful, right? So you get the students to come up, at the end of the lesson, try this. At the end of our talk today, I want you all to come up with at least one, 3 if you're amazing, but 1 will do, hashtags for today's lesson, all right, today's sessions, right? Hashtags, by the way, are short. My boss comes out with very long hashtags, like hashtag amazing teams achieve amazing things. Or hashtag the show must go on. That's still quite long, right? But, you know, I won't tell you any because I'll let you think, but see if you can get short one-word hashtags for today's session to help you remember. And if they're good, we can tell the TV people afterwards. And then, as I said, idea connections. Connect to hashtags, connect the ideas from this week's lesson to last week's lesson to last week's lesson. This is something called spaced learning, which has been around since the 1960s. Remind back what you've did. Connect. How can we use something from last week in this week's lesson and so on? And again, that's showing progress to the learners from the connections they like to make, because they're not linear. Okay, click through them. Sprints we talked about, click through. And finally, some warnings, okay? This is the last 2 minutes of my talk. The people at the back who are waiting to talk more. Some warnings for you all. Please click. 1, 2, 3, 4. Click, click, click. 1 more. I'll keep this on the screen just for a moment. I didn't talk much about technology, but we very often use technology in the classroom just because it's cool. I had some good ideas when I went around the group for things that they really like to do. So people were quite thoughtful. But often we just swap something that wasn't tech with something that is tech with no difference. That's called substitution. Sometimes we switch it for something that's got a few more features when we add it to technology. So a substitution might be just using paper flashcards. Somebody talked about paper flashcards. And so is it Gabriella? Yeah, Gabriella talked about paper flashcards. Galina. They can remember your name. I need a flashcard. So, okay. Galina, thank you, talked about the paper flashcards, which kids can use very, very well. So that's fine if it works. You might use electronic flashcards like Quizlet for a little augmentation, right? Because maybe they can pop up on screen. But actually Quizlet goes a bit further than that because you can modify. Then the flashcards can also make some quizzes. So rather than just a straight swap, that technology is quite good because it allows some more stages. It allows augmentation. Maybe, for example, you can have the recording on there as well, so it can say it, so listen. But then also modification because a Quizlet can also allow the flashcards to become quizzes. And so the student can test themselves, right? Which they could do with the paper thing, but it can do quite more sophisticated quizzes, mixing things up and changing the definitions of the word round to make multiple choice and things. So that's modification. That's good. That is now transforming the task through technology. So if you can get to modification, it's worth doing. If you just get augmentation, it's not really changing the way you teach too much. If you can get transformation, then you can do something students could never do before. And that way you're really using technology richly. This might be, for example, maybe your class can make a video about their projects of how they wanted to make a parkour course, possibly alongside the water here, and share it with another class in an online presentation, and the other class gives them feedback, and the other class is in another country. Right? And that kind of video conferencing and describing what they could never have done without technology. Okay? You have things like Skype for schools that link up like this. So that's transformation. So this is, if you're going to use technology, and again, I didn't talk a lot about using computers, don't just use them because they're fun. They need to be raising the bar. They need to be going towards something. This framework, and again, I'll give you this as a slide so you can study it more thoroughly. It's from Professor Pointedura, his SAMR framework. It's quite a useful thing if you're looking at exactly how much tech you use within a school. Please hit one more. One more. Okay, just for you. Again, technology. Everyone thinks that studying is about using technology. What's the big problem between the picture on the left and the picture on the right? Or are they the same? Is there any difference there? Sorry? Yeah? Yeah, so the earphones, what you're seeing is that's a language lab in about 1950 in Stanford in the USA. And the headphones are a recent conference. You'll find that picture all over the internet. Is that good language learning in both of those? Is there anything missing? Maybe it's missing a teacher. Yeah, it's a shame. Well, that would be bad. No jobs for us. What else is missing? There's no interaction. There's no communication, right? It's just absorbing it. And I think earlier on I asked, are you communicative language teachers? And sort of most people put their hands up. Yeah, not everybody, but more than 60%. So we believe in the power of communication and building communicative competence in students, right? Del Hines, this is what our Cambridge exams test, for example. This is what we work towards. People who can use the language to do something. People who can just listen and receive on really learning enough. In the modified CEFR, I'll talk about it again, the modified CEFR actually says that you have to use communicative tasks to teach these things. Right? It's now stated not just what they must learn, but some of the pedagogy is actually stated, how they gain these competencies. So if we just use this kind of technology firing things at us, which a lot of people will say tech can do, unless you're actively involved in that in some way, it's not going to get you what you need to get. Okay, and as I said, I talked about digital natives, but I didn't speak a lot about technology today. Please click through. Click. That's the same thing in another picture. I talked about some useful links, which I'll put back to the slide in a minute. Click. One more. And yes. Don't worry, because I'll send you the slide back. Can we click to the links? Yeah. But we will send you that. Visible Learning is a website that talks about different small effects you can have that make a big impact on classes. This is from the work of someone called Hattie's Effects. Teacher Toolbox is good access to lots of different types of ways to blend your learning and micro-blend learning, lots of different tools. And then Tony Buzzen is the thing about the mind maps and the remembering, which I think it was invented a long time ago. Many of us use it in our teaching, but we've forgotten it. And then ef.com, Teacher's Own, which I think Camilla might talk a little bit more about, is how we offer ways for you to access more of this kind of talk, but online, using the technology, with some of our experts from EF, and we also offer certification, where we will send you a certificate for participation, just the same as I think we're going to do for participation in today's seminar. So thank you very much for your time. When I do this kind of talk, I'm always nervous of just making it a list of apps, which is why I don't do it. We've mentioned Quizlet a few times. I've mentioned Quizlet. I think it's quite powerful because it gives individual chances of learning. So this is one I would recommend. Also, something that I recommend a lot of you solve, we have our own tools, is something called Padlet, which is very good. It's easy to remember. If you can remember Quizlet, you can remember Padlet. A good way that students can bring ideas together. You can present through it. You can also make it a collaborative board. I think the collaborative tools in the Google Classroom, and I think you can use Google Classroom here. No, you can't use Google Classroom, okay. Jump out of Google Classroom. Can you use Microsoft here, right? You can use Microsoft and you can use SharePoint on Microsoft, yes? Yeah. So also within Microsoft, if you can use SharePoint, you can get a very similar tool where students can type together in the same document. So that's quite a nice thing to use sometimes. There is, forgive me, I think it's called either use Deep Blue or Dropbox. Dropboxing I find quite useful as a way to make a shared Dropbox, and that's available here. Great. So shared Dropbox where students can put different pieces of work in. So for example, if you did have an assignment that was a sort of video assignment where you wanted them all to drop a short video or they do some design and work with, you can use Dropbox as a space to collaborate in. And you can put documents in there that other people can edit together. So a Dropbox is quite a handy one, not necessarily all edit at the same time, but nice and simple and easy. So those are a few of the ones I would recommend at this point. And then one of the most powerful tools that I always say a lot is simply get the students to use the video and the audio recorder on their phones. It doesn't have to be an app. They can video and audio themselves in as many activities as you like and get them to play it back afterwards and see, was my accent right? Did I use the language point from today's lesson correctly myself? So get them to use that for a lot of self-correction. That way you don't interrupt the task and you get them to look at it and you get them involved in the correction. So I would do that lots, even if they're not making video projects and things themselves. Does that help? Yes?
I wonder if EF provides a place or a spot on the internet where students from different countries can communicate, like can find pen pals.
We don't. We have in the past run small projects doing that. We don't have a specific ongoing one that does that at the moment. Most of what we offer right now is for teachers. Yeah, and we've done a few different projects, but I'll leave that space for Camilla to talk about, because maybe there is some There are some little things we've been up to, but you can find any messenger platform where the students have a series of tasks to complete, and you send them out through the messenger, and then they make their responses back through the messenger. For example, they have to have a picture of them all standing in a certain way, or they have to design something, or they have to make a short interview with somebody, and they post them all back. So we've used that a lot to get learning outside the classroom and structure it. Because I teach in countries where the language is spoken, in different context to you, I can say, okay, here are some things you need to do around town, and they can use the messenger to report those back. So I think they're very useful. In the classroom, we have experimented a little bit with kind of having a link on sort of presentations for feedback, but honestly, we've actually found that's less successful. In a university setting, a lot of people will tell you in universities, it's a way to make sure the students are involved, that they can ask questions to the lecturer. I haven't really seen that work anywhere yet. I've heard a lot of talk about it, but I've seen it work more where the lecturer gets out amongst students or has a pause for questions and so on. I haven't seen that great. Works nicely online, but face-to-face, people don't seem to type you secret questions in the middle of the lecture. I don't know why. Have you had more successes there?
I once tried it in PBL approach.
Right.
But it didn't work much because, I don't know, shy, lazy,
Yeah.
indifferent.
I think it's nice for reporting the stages of your project, as you're talking about. A project, obviously PBL could be project-based learning or problem-based learning, but they're basically the same thing, right? But you kind of can report what you're doing going through. So it can be a nice kind of diarising tool in that way. I think it's an idea, so stick with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Anyone else? Yes.
Am I right? You said that you're writing a book.
Yes. That one's 10 projects for language learning classrooms.
When do you think it's going to be brought out?
Well, if any of you know any publishers out there that would like to buy it, kind of, we'll see. When I have something together, I shall push it out there. But
It's really exciting to have these whole things like planned and probably compiled together.
thank you. Thanks for that. You can, if you're interested in seeing things that I've written or whatever, you might find me on LinkedIn. But also, I presented at the last two Equals conferences, the people who do the CFR, and you will find some things online there with the Equals conferences about crazy stuff like using Lego and microblending in a classroom. So you can read some things that I've sort of written.